Okay. Hi everyone again. I know that I kept you waiting 10 extra minutes, but I was getting a bit of feedback around people that were having challenges with joining the meeting. I have a registration of about 36 participants, but I think 10 participants is good enough for me to kick off, and then hopefully the others can join us along the way because I don't want to keep you guys waiting. Uh, for people that might or might not show up in the first place. So I hope everybody is okay. Welcome to my first live session of Co-Create. Usually how I run this is that I take feedback and questions from people that might have a few questions here and there about content creation, and I sort of share with them video feedback. Sometimes I put it online, sometimes I share it with them personally because their needs are very, very specific. But over time there has come in bits of feedback about if I have follow-up questions to the responses that you give me, how then do I approach you without stretching it. People don't want tewagala chisusa. You give them answers, and then they have follow-up questions, and they have follow-up questions to follow-up questions. So I thought it would be smarter to start conducting these sessions online, so that if any feedback, any questions, any follow-ups arise from the information that I share, the people are in place to sort of ask me right there and then. Could just one person confirm that I can still be heard? Because somebody confirmed at the beginning of the meeting, but I muted. So can I still be heard? Just a text would
Yes,
help in the chat.
you can
Okay.
be heard.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And thanks, Hassan. Thanks, you guys, for showing up on time. I know that probably along the way, more people will join us, but I'll get us started, and then hopefully, as time goes on, there'll be more people coming in, and they'll join us, and they'll get on board. So basically, what I'll be sharing with you today is is just a few basic tips, a few basics to see how you can improve using your smartphone to create content. I know that a lot of us have literally paid an arm and a leg to afford important or maybe very expensive high flagship phones, but we might not be in the best capacity to use them. I'll try and be as basic with my language as possible because I know that we are not all professional photographers or videographers. So I'll try and be basic in the language that I use, and also I'll try to cater for all sorts of phones. I know that some people are very interested in content creation, but they've not yet, maybe had the opportunity to invest in the high-end phones that some of us are using to create content. So I'll try and share tips that might help you to improve your content regardless of the quality of phone that you're using. Um, but overall, I feel like it's very important for me to uh, call out the fact that even with the tips that I'm going to share, we cannot create magic. Yeah. If you have, say, maybe a level C type of phone, what I'm going to share at best is maybe going to raise your content to, something that looks crispier, maybe level B. But I'm not, I'm not going to make magic with your hardware. What I'm going to share is around how to improve our software, which is more around the settings, the applications that we use. But when push comes to shove, your phone is your phone, and there's not like a lot more that you can adjust about the quality of your camera. So while we share these tips, and while they'll be good for you in case your phone is still on the lower end, in the long run, do give some consideration to investing in uh, a better phone as and when you get the budget. So I'll kick us off with the presentation. Why can't I find this? Yeah. So I'll kick us off with the presentation. Um, and then I'll sort of run through it in case any questions arise. Please just note them down and share them with me maybe towards the end of the session. Unless it's urgent, at which point, of course, you can unmute yourself and just let me know. Okay. Are you all able to view what I'm presenting? Just one nay or one yay, and I'll proceed. Okay. Uh, thanks, Hassan. I feel like you're my feedback mascot. You're the one that's sharing feedback at every point. Okay, thanks, thanks, Patience. I see a thumbs up, so I'll just proceed. Yeah, so we'll be going through just 8 basics to improve your phone's pictures and videos. And a lot of them will be cutting across what settings you might have ignored within your camera, what settings you might have ignored within your editing applications, and also whether you need to install editing applications in the first place. We'll also look a little bit at how we shape, how we position our bodies, and whether that has a direct effect on the quality of content that comes out, the quality of content that we produce. Um, yeah, and we'll look at the camera interface and which little things we should not be ignoring that help us to create crispier content. Okay, so the very first one, which I think I brought first because it has a lot of technical language that I'll try to break down as little as possible, is to always work with the highest resolution of your phone. Now, a lot of phones these days, I think, do 4K. You probably, maybe you researched your phone before you purchased it and you found out it was able to produce 4K. Um, some are able to produce 8K. However, most of the times when you purchase a phone, I think the default setting is either at 4K or more commonly at 1080p. And a lot of people don't go through you know, the inconvenience of trying to adjust that to ensure that they choose the highest resolution. And so I actually encounter it, ironically enough, I encounter it a lot with iPhone users who will contact me and say, I really put a lot of money into this phone, but I feel like my output is different from the other output I see from other iPhone users. And then you go into the settings. I think it's common with iPhone users because your settings are sort of hidden. They're not within the camera itself, but you have to go into your settings literally to be able to sort of toggle things and adjust them and everything like that. So I think a lot of people don't take the time to go in there and try to adjust them. So when you purchase your phone, there's different sorts of resolutions. Um, and to just sort of break it down to a layman's language, your resolution is basically how many pixels you have in every square inch. Now, pixels are those, those little grains that you see on your screen, or maybe when something is not clear, when a video is not clear, you notice there's a lot of grain running around. So that sort of grain, the reason you see it happening with low resolution videos is because there's not enough pixels in every square inch for you to get a picture as crisp as possible. So choosing a high resolution would basically give you more pixels in every square inch, which we call a pixel per inch density, a PPI density. So as you choose a higher resolution, you have more pixels to work with in every square inch of your photo, in every square inch of your video. And what that means is they have a lot more pixels to work with to give you a sharp image or a clear picture. So you want to, first things first, when you purchase your smartphone, you want to make sure that you go to your phone and choose your highest resolution. Go to your camera settings, choose your highest resolution. If it's 4K, work with 4K. Now, on the low end of things, on the downside of things, um, the higher the resolution you choose, the more file size, the more size your files are going to take up, the more space your files are going to take up. So you'll have very heavy videos, but I mean, it's a small price to pay for very clear footage. So you sort of balance in between. If you want to work with very high footage, very high quality footage, then you probably want to invest in a phone that has more storage space. Alternatively, you want to invest in maybe a hard drive or maybe a small solid state drive so that you can keep, shifting things to your drive or your laptop so that you keep creating space. But the the footnote is for you to try and work with the highest resolution as you can. Now, when we talk about resolution, I've been talking about the camera, the camera, the camera. But the thing is, resolution also cuts across to your screen and your editing app and your social media channels. Now, when it comes to your screen, I don't know if you've ever noticed this. Sometimes you'll take a picture on your phone and it looks really, really nice. And then you'll send it to somebody else, even not by WhatsApp, which, sort of compromises image quality. You'll even use maybe an email or Bluetooth, and the picture looks totally different on the other phone. Probably crispier, probably, worse than it did on your phone. This is basically because when you are working with editing, the resolution of your screen matters as well, because things are going to look very sharp, or maybe very grainy on your screen, and then you'll send your final product to somebody else, and then it will appear clear. A simple explanation, maybe a simple example to give you about that would be, I don't know if you've ever edited pictures or videos and you see them on your phone and they are like super sharp. And then at some point you view them on a laptop or you view them on a TV and they look far from how good they looked on your phone. That is basically because the resolution of your laptop or your TV is very, very different from that of your phone. It does not change anything about the quality in which you took the picture. It's just how you view it. So when you're doing your post-production, you basically want to work with the best. You want to work with the best resolution on screen. You want to work with the best resolution on camera. When you're editing in your apps, at the point of exporting your footage, you want to work with the highest resolution that they offer you. Could be 4K, could be 1080p, depending on what editing apps you're using, although I think majority now offer 4K. So work with the highest resolution at every point. When it comes to social media, the same applies. Um, so as you probably know, social media is like a huge global force. So it serves a lot of people worldwide. It serves probably over 50 or 60% of the global population. What that means is that they have a lot of files to work with. So for them to be able to, have servers that can store all these things that we upload, people like probably myself and a lot of the faces I see on here share like 4 or 5 images in just one day, memes, personal pictures, videos, and all those things. So for these guys servers to be able to support all these things, to be able to hold all these things in the cloud, what they do is by default, they put the settings of the app to upload lower quality content. They put it at least 720p, which is high definition, yes, but in comparison to the nice things that you guys see on social media, you know that 720p is nothing. So as soon as you log into, or at any point at any opportunity that you have, as soon as you go into your social media and go to your settings, there's probably somewhere where you'll see upload settings. Always make sure that you choose to upload high quality content, because that means that what you'll be uploading for us to see on social media will basically become 1080p. I would love to say it would be 4K, but 4K only works for a lot of the applications that are out of Meta's jurisdiction, Meta being the Facebook guys. But Facebook, Instagram, I think Snapchat as well, WhatsApp, the maximum resolution that they can let you upload is 1080p. So don't let that stop you from exporting, your things in high quality, but ensure that you go to your social media channels and select to upload your content at a high quality. So that will help you to ensure that what we see on screen is, just as good or almost as good as you shot it, and it will be less stressful. My last point around this is something called a high efficiency image container format, HEIC. I think this is mostly common with iPhone users, yes. It's a format that you choose over the common JPEG that we have. Now, the meaning of high efficiency images is that they are sort of lossless. They compact everything, all the pixels that you take exactly as you take the image is how it's saved. So when it comes to your post-producing, when you want to throw images into Lightroom, when you want to throw images into, I don't know what other editing apps you use, this will ensure that, there's enough pixels for you to play around with and to edit and all those things. So you won't lose a lot of the quality within your editing. Now, this option has also become available to Samsung lately. I own an S22 Ultra, and I think from the ultras we should be having high efficiency image. I don't know about the others, I can't speak for the others, but in case this is an option that is available to you, please make sure that you utilize it, because it's going to give you, especially if you're planning to do a bit of editing on your pictures, it will give you a chance to edit them without compromising the quality of your images a lot. So I'll move us on to the next one, which is something we call frame rates. Now, frame rates work with video formats. Frame rates simply are basically how many frames you want to fit into every second of your video. If you remember, I don't know if some of you are familiar with how cartoons were created way back, where they were basically put on paper and then they were played back to back from those papers to sort of create a motion. So that is basically how frame rate works. It is one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. If there's like an action of you picking up a bottle, there's like a lot of frames within that action, because video is basically a collection of pictures. Video is just a collection of pictures compacted into one motion picture, which is literally what they call films, motion pictures. So your frame rate basically determines how many frames or how many pictures do you want within every second to be able to make that video. Now, this is a lot of technical language, but to put it as basically as I can, what you want to do is to work with as high a frame rate as possible if you are planning to do things in slow motion. Why you need to work with a high frame rate is because when you shoot a video in a normal frame rate and then you spread it, you try to put it in slow-mo, the final product, I don't know if you've encountered this before, especially videos on TikTok and I think Instagram for some people who don't know how to do it. There are some slow motions that look plastic. It's like as if a collection of pictures just happening one after the other, as opposed to seeming seamless as a video. Why that happens is basically because they worked with a lower frame rate, either at shooting or at the point of exporting their footage from the editing app that they used, maybe CapCut or InShot or whichever. So, in case you want to create some cinematic images about your product or your service, you're going to be doing some slow-mo. I know people who are into the clothing business use this very commonly. They do those shots where guys look cool with their shades and their suits and girls walk in slow motion and everything. If you're planning to create slow motion videos for your content, what you basically want to do is to go to your settings up there. I think for most cameras, they're located within the camera itself, and select what you see as FPS on I think on the second line down there, what you see as FPS. So when you select 60 frames per second, that will work for you very well in creating slow motion from the content that you shoot. When you select 120 frames per second, that is for super slow motion. That will work like extra well. But I know that option is not available for a lot of us. Yeah, so that will basically help you. It will help your footage to look as seamless as it can. In case you are going to work with normal speed video content, then please by all means work with a 30 frame rate per second. Just work with it, because exactly how you shoot it is how you're going to show it to us. For example, if I'm recording this live right now, then I have no use recording this in 60 frames per second, because when I share this recording with people later, I'm not planning to put myself in slow motion and look cool, talking to you, because it's also going to affect how fast I'm speaking to you. So because I'm going to export this in normal rate as I'm speaking, then it should be okay for me to shoot 30 frames per second. Don't waste your time shooting 60 frames per second in this, because while you're going to export normal footage, because it's not going to change anything, and also it's going to take a lot more unnecessary storage space for your footage. So as I already highlighted, this also applies to the point where you're exporting your video in post-production. Please, if you shot your things in 60 frame rates per second, in 50 frames per second, 60 frames per second, sorry, and you work out your slow motion and everything, as you export your video from CapCut, from InShot, from maybe Canva, whatever app you're using, please make sure that you select the same frame rate that you used to shoot your footage. So if you worked with 60, choose 60. If you worked with 30, choose 30. Because if you worked with 60 frames per second at shooting, you did your whole slow-mo, and then you're exporting it at 30 frames per second, the same problem that I highlighted earlier is going to come out. It's going to just look, like a lot of pictures compacted together. Okay. Um, I'll move us on to the third, which is utilizing your autofocus function. I think for a lot of phones, I, th I think for the iPhone people, it's called an AF lock. I don't know if you've noticed this when you're about to take a picture and you sort of select a subject, you use your finger to select a subject on the camera. They'll show you sort of a ring that is white. Um, I don't know if you can see. I think this photo is very exposed, so I don't know if you can see, but for those that might be able to see, there's a yellow ring down there, exactly where I circled in white. So that yellow ring turns yellow when you long press the white ring that says AF lock. So when you long press that and it turns to yellow, it has a lock icon that sort of locks itself. And what that basically means is you've chosen an autofocus lock for your picture, for your video. So from that point forward, as you shoot, the focus of your camera is going to be on that subject that you have chosen. So, and also, if your subject moves, exactly where your subject was before is where that focus is going to stay. Now, what does that mean? That means you need to pick your moments when you're going to lock your focus on a subject and when not. If you're going to shoot a subject that is in a motion, probably for your video, if they're going to be moving a lot, then do not lock the focus on them because they're going to keep going out of focus, and the distance between them and your camera is going to keep changing at different intervals. So at any point when they move out of the range where you locked your focus, they're going to become blurry. You won't be able to see them, which is probably why you've seen videos where people become clear and unclear, clear and unclear at different points of the video. That is because the focus was locked down and basically the subject kept moving and the focus did not adjust to meet the subject's range. So in case you're going to shoot moving subjects, please don't lock your focus down. But in the event that you're going to shoot static subjects, and especially if you're going to shoot pictures, please lock down your focus, and that will help you to keep your subject in focus and then blur everything in the background to give you that cinematic feel. Now, if you turn on your autofocus, there's usually a line below the ring that has a sun icon. I think it's an icon of the sun. I don't know if you've attempted before, but when you lock your autofocus and you adjust that sun to the right, it's going to make your picture brighter. When you adjust it to the left, it's going to make your picture a bit darker. Now, what that basically means is you're adjusting the exposure of your image. When you adjust the exposure of your image, it's helpful in the sense that sometimes when we're out in the sun, it's too bright. And that comes out in how our pictures look. You can see this picture had a lot of sun in it. Mwalimu akasana kanji. So for you to curb that down, first of all, when you AF lock your subject, at that point, the exposure of your picture already has been locked. It is not going to change. So whatever light you're using at that point is what is going to come out. And if you AF lock your subject, even in video, if you move from out in the sun and you're recording video and then you maybe move into a hut or a house or maybe under the tree, without AF lock, your exposure is supposed to adjust to accommodate now the new light. But with AF lock, that is not going to change. So when you turn on your AF lock while shooting video, it is also helpful to keep the exposure of your image, the exposure of your video uniform throughout. But if you're going to move into a dark space now, that means that when you move into that dark space, it's going to show that this is a very, very dark area. So if you're planning on very cinematic feeling footage, then that might be a good option for you to explore, because also the darkness conveys something to our emotions that you're moving into a dark space, which means something. Yeah, so don't be afraid to adjust your exposure. If you're in a place with a lot of sunlight, when you AF lock on your subject, just move the sun icon to the left a little bit to sort of decrease the exposure so that your picture looks richer, so that the blacks, what we call the blacks in your picture, the dark patterns of your picture sort of pop out, and the light patterns of your picture don't have a lot of grain in them. So that will help in case you utilize your focus correctly. The fourth that I'd like us to discuss is around turning on your grid lines. Now, this sounds like the most obvious thing for me to bring up, but you'll be surprised how many people turn these grid lines off. Some people just feel like they are obstructions. They feel like they interfere with what they can see in the picture. But ultimately, these grid lines are actually in a frame to sort of help you, in the first place, choose where your subjects should be, choose where to frame your people or whatever you're going to shoot. These grid lines come in handy. It is almost criminal for you to be shooting footage or shooting pictures without grid lines to sort of guide you. I know some crazy creatives who will probably, abuse them, don't use them or just, take them off altogether. But again, the end point of what they're trying to shoot is like some crazy, crazy things, like how you'll see drones that sort of follow people around. At that point, of course, a grid line is very useless. But if you're working with your smartphone to create content, it is very ideal for you to turn your grid lines on so that you are able to tell exactly where your subject is going to be. You're able to choose where to frame your subjects, and different placements of your subjects within the grid lines communicate different things. If you want us to concentrate on somebody's face, then you ideally want to put them in the mid of the grid lines, in the center of the grid lines, because then our entire focus is on them. Everything else around them, everything else behind them becomes very unimportant to us at that point. But if you are shooting maybe an interview of someone, maybe in a trading center or in a market, or even you're shooting an interview of yourself in your business, you're sitting in your business and you're trying to talk about your business. Ideally, you want your surroundings to give us a context of where you're speaking from, to give us a context of your business. So you probably want to have your products in the background, and then at that point, you as a subject will move to either the left side of the grid lines or the right side of the grid lines. And then you will lock your autofocus on yourself wherever you will be. So when you lock the autofocus on yourself on the left or the side of the grid lines, all the other things in the background will be a bit blurry for effect, but they'll still show. So that way we are able to see that, if Habiba is talking about juice, which she makes, then, we are able to see it in the background. We know what she's speaking to. So it helps in that sense. Grid lines are very important and they'll help you to, get creative with how you compose yourself, how you frame your picture, what you want in your picture, what you don't want in your picture, and things of the sort. So don't forget to use them. I said here that the spaces, the lines, and the intersections all matter. If you notice, this is a picture that I took from my home, the one that is currently in the slide. If you notice, I have a flower vase in the center, which ideally communicates that that's like where I want the focus to be, and also that's where my autofocus is, as you see. But if you notice, the very first intersection of the line on the left and the line on the top is exactly where my picture is. There's a picture of me and my cat, a guy called Loki that maybe some of you know. So there's a picture there. That was also intentional for me to just sort of point your eyes somewhere there. Now, this happens subconsciously. There's no lines in your final picture to show people, now you look there, now you look there. No, but as you place your subjects, you keep these things in mind. Where will their eye go? At what point? And what will they see there? And then you position your subjects there according to the grid lines. Okay, I spent a bit of time on the grid lines. Let's move on to using the right camera mode and the right lens. Now, when I say camera mode is basically what you see in front of, what you see within your camera when you're going to shoot. There's photo, I think there's portrait photo, there's video, there's portrait video for you who have higher end phones. I think some cameras have something called beauty, which is like an AI function of the camera to sort of beautify your face. I have never really used that, but that's a function in there. There's night modes, There's a panorama mode. Some cameras have modes for food. Basically, like different modes. Yeah. Depending on what you're going to shoot, work with the right mode. If your last footage was shot in portrait video and you turn your camera on and you try to shoot something of a landscape, maybe you're out on a vacation and you're shooting CP Falls and you are trying to shoot the whole landscape, and maybe a waiter comes and passes by with a tray, and he passes by in front, like just between you and the landscape, between your camera and the landscape, and he passes by, what's going to happen with portrait video is that that waiter is going to become the subject and the rest of your footage is going to be blurry. But your whole point of showing us that was for us to be able to see, the landscape that you're enjoying on your vacay. So we won't be able to see that. We shall not be able to see that. We'll just see it as a blurry, background information, and the focus will be on the waiter. So be careful to choose the right mode. Also, if you use like maybe portrait photo, and you try to take a picture of a landscape, what's going to happen is it's going to select on focus points, and then a lot of it is going to be blurry. So use the modes as and when you need to use them, just as soon as, and I think a lot of cameras are set for when you come back into the camera, whatever last mode you used is what is going to turn on. So you need to be careful with that to ensure that every time you get into the camera, you use the right mode. Yeah, now I would strongly advise you to work with the default camera mode, which is photo or video, because how that would help is that it would give you more control over the focal point of your shots. When you use portrait photo or portrait video, basically that is an AI function of your camera that has been designed to choose your subject for you. So whoever is in front, whoever is sort of speaking to the camera is who they'll select. It doesn't matter if there's a band behind them performing, the band becomes blurry. And all these things, like all the other background information that you might want highlighted, is going to become blurry because you are operating with a portrait function. So if you work with your default camera mode, that helps because it helps you, like I already mentioned, it helps you to choose your focus points. When you select your focus points, you can even lock your focus on there, and that thing becomes the main subject, and that will bring your content out a lot crispier. It will be more intentional, and it will send your message across. Now, the last point on cameras and lenses is to try and use your main wide lens as much as you can, and adjust your own body position as opposed to adjusting the lens. Now, what I mean by this is, I think literally almost at least 2 or 3 lenses to their disposal. So you have the normal lens that we have always had on our phones and cameras, which is what we call a wide lens. Then you have one that is purposed to, take more things into context, which we call an ultra wide lens. I think for some cameras it's a 0.5 on the interface of your camera. For some it's a 0.6, which is I think Samsung. Now that's an ultra wide lens. Then you have I think what they call a telephoto lens, which basically is like a zoom lens. It enables you to shoot things from afar and make them look closer. Then Samsung has a 4th lens, the macro lens. Now that one is like, I think our by 3, because our telephoto is by 10. And I think a by 50 for newer phones, I'm not sure. But at least for my phone, it's a by 10, my telephoto. Then my macro lens is a by 3. So that zooms in things, it magnifies things by, 3 times the value. Now, all these are very nice options to have at your exposure. However, as you've probably already noticed in shooting your footage, the resolution dedicated to your main wide lens is very different from the resolution dedicated to your, say, your telephoto lens or your macro lens. The resolutions are very different. The others are like 10 pixels, 12 pixels, 12 pixels. And then your main wide lens is for example, now in my instance, it's like 108 megapixels. I know for you guys with the later versions of the ultras, it's even higher. It's like 200 or something like that. So you want to utilize these other lenses only when the necessity arises. When you are too far from your subject, maybe it's like a wedding and you don't want to appear in the main videographer's content, just moving around with your phone. So you want to shoot things from as far as you can. At that point, by all means, please utilize these lenses. But if you have the luxury of getting closer to your subject, if you can get as close to them as your eye can, please move as close to them as you can and utilize the main wide lens, because you'll be able to capture everything with as high a resolution as you want, and that obviously gives you a lot more room to work with in post editing your content. Uh, the other point is around prioritizing your video stabilization. Now, this is something that you need to embed into your being, your blood, as someone creating content for your business, content for your service, or even just like your own stories. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you have friends who are content creators, when you go out with them on like vacays, they tend to take their job too seriously. Like we get too serious with the camera, we are very, very focused, we're moving very slow. Most times, people are calling us to catch up, man, move, come, because we are moving as slow as we can. Why that's happening is because we want to get footage as stable as possible, that is not shaky. Now, camera advancements have enabled video stabilization within the cameras. So, for example, I think in my camera settings, there's an option to turn on video stabilization. If you check your camera settings and that's an option available, please, by all means, make sure that you turn that on, because that will be a whole huge difference between your footage and the footage of somebody that does not have it. So turn it on. But even so, as you turn it on, a lot of other basics in how you handle your camera, in how you move around with your camera will help to get you stable footage. For example, if you're going to shoot, please do not use one hand to shoot video. With photos, maybe, but still, it's something I'd advise against. But if you at any point you're going to create content with your smartphone, do not treat it any less than you would a camera, because if it was your wedding and you saw a photographer just like using one hand to shoot the camera and then maybe using another hand to do something else, I think you'd feel less confident about the output of that footage or those pictures. So basically, when you're going to use your phone for camera purposes, try as much as you can to use two hands. Use two hands, and that will make your footage a lot more stable. um, and when you use two hands, in case you're going to shoot footage, which obviously means you're going to be holding your camera for a lot longer time, you want to move your hands as close to your body as you possibly can. Because when you move them closer to your body, the whole setup is sort of gravitated to one central place. It's not shaky, because if your hands are free, like moving around like that, then that's going to come out in also how your footage is short. So you want to keep your hands next to your body, which is what I mean when I say press your elbows into your sides, sort of like how you see me in this frame, how the hands are sort of pressed onto my body. Now, when they're pressed onto your body, it sort of gravitates your footage. It helps you to stabilize your footage a lot more. And then when you're shooting while in motion, if you're going to move towards a subject, don't just walk, don't just lift your legs far and just sort of stomp around the place. That is going to come out in how you shoot your footage. And that is basically why a lot of videos of the people who go out like in bars and everything, it comes out in how the footage is shaking, because the person was probably having fun at the same time as they were shooting content, which isn't a bad thing, because also the shakiness goes to communicate that this was shot in the middle of fun. But if you want to shoot like serious content speaking about your products, your business, and you're moving towards maybe one of the things that you sell, be very slow about it. Crouch yourself in a position where you sort of move your shoulders inward and just sort of bend a little bit and move with your feet towards the subject as slow as you can. That will bring out a lot of the camera shake that you would if you just freely move towards your subject. Yeah. Quick point is for you to give some consideration to purchasing a tripod or a gimbal to help you with the content that you're shooting. This isn't a must really. I think I've been to events where I've shot with freehand because I'm following these other basics that I've shared with you. But for beginners or not even for beginners, even for professionals. It goes a long way for you to have extra help, extra technical help, mechanical help to shoot your footage. So yeah, look into it. There's a lot of options available on the market. Some are cheap, some are a bit pricier, and the range of functions that they serve you, is directly relative to the prices. So just give a bit of thought to that as well. Now, if it gets to the worst, if you have shot your footage, you have tried to do all these things, and still, in how your footage output is looking, there's still a bit of shakiness. There's post-production options to help with that. If you install, I don't know about InShot, I'm not sure about InShot, I don't think I've seen the function, but if you install CapCut onto your phone, now CapCut will have an option, an AI option to stabilize your video for you. So they will make your video a lot less shaky. But that comes with a cost. What basically happens with video stabilization of AI is that a lot of the ends of your frame are cut out. So they work with what's in the middle and stabilize that and make it stable. But a lot of what you had on the ends is going to go out. So if it's like a video of like a group of friends, if you decide to use in-app video stabilization, you need to come to peace with the fact that some of your friends, you're going to have like one ear and one eye and half of their lips and things like that. That's something that's bound to happen in case they were at the end of your frame and you choose this option. So you want to avoid using CapCut's video stabilization as much as possible by prioritizing your video stabilization at the point where you are shooting the footage. Now, I think we're almost coming to the end of the tips. This one here, adjust your sharpness. Now this, I added in here with 2 hearts. Why I added it in here with 2 hearts is because it's a very helpful tip, but it is one of the most abused tips ever. Not even just with smartphone users, but even guys that do professional photography. You have seen those pictures that people hire photographers to do, and then the final product looks as if it was drawn on pencil. Like it looks like a painting. It looks very, very plastic. Why that happens is that they sharpen the images too much. Now, when they sharpen the images too much on your eye, it feels so razor sharp. It just optically, it's very unappealing. It's very, because even as you look at things on your day to day, things don't look that sharp. There's a beautiful contrast. There's a balance of how you see things. There are things that look unclear to you. There are things that look clear to you because of how close they are to you. So that also needs to come out in your pictures. But as a basic rule, I just sort of add a little bit of sharpness. At most, I do like 5 or 3. Now, this feature is not only for editing apps. It's something that's available to you even with your inbuilt phone editors. So if you're not planning to post-produce your pictures in apps like Lightroom or Snapseed or Canva or anywhere like that, you can still go to the edit function of your phone, and if you scroll along all the opportunities, all the features, you should be able to see sharpness somewhere there, and adjust the sharpness just by a little bit. Just move it to like 3, 5, at the very most 10, and 10 is like really stretching it. But if you move it to 100 and all those 50s, 70s, it is going to make your picture look very, 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 very plastic. It makes the file size very heavy and it just looks bad on the eye. So make sure that you use this, within stride. Now, there's some other functions within editing apps, specifically, I think Lightroom, called clarity and dehazing. Now, clarity adds more definition to your picture. Clarity adds more definition to your picture without necessarily making it sharper. But still, you want to use it in good stride. So you want to work with at most maybe 10, unless you are using like a preset that sort of shoots it up for you. But on your own, you want to use it in a range of like 5 to 10. So that's a function that you could also utilize. And then dehazing basically makes pictures less blurry.
So even at your basic picture level, if you want to, make it less blurry, not sharper, but just less blurry and just make things more vivid, then you use the dehaze option. It's also available to you. And all these are free features. You don't have to have paid for Lightroom to be able to use them. But again, use them sparingly. The downside to dehazing is that as you add a dehaze, your picture gets darker and darker. So you want to keep that in mind as well. Uh, my last point, which is a no-brainer really, is for you to explore your editing apps. Look into the apps that you install on your phone. And I think a lot of people have editing apps on their phones, but they installed them because they got recommendations from one person, two people, three people. Or sometimes even I think some of the editing apps came installed on the phone, especially if they were buying like a used phone or something. Please don't be afraid to explore these applications. They have a lot of functionalities open to you. And hand in hand with them is how much you read up on their functionalities. YouTube being, I think YouTube is like the biggest resource available to us for these things. Literally, a lot of what I'm teaching you or a lot of what I'm sharing with you here today is like YouTube sourced information that I've put to practice. I've literally not been to, say, maybe like a class or to the university for these things. So just install the apps. If you need some recommendations on the apps, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to help with those. And when you install them, just don't be afraid to try out things. I think the biggest problem with creatives and content creators is that we put our eye a lot on perfection. Like we try to perfect things at the first go. It's not supposed to be like that. So all the perfection that we see out here comes from a lot of trying, a lot of trials, and a lot of errors and a lot of failures. So install these apps, play around with them, try out different functions. If you don't see what difference this feature has created in your image or your footage, look it up. Find out, what is this supposed to achieve for me, and things of the sort. So you will not, you'll be in a much better place just having like a fair knowledge of how to use these things than you would if you just have them installed and you're using them to just add filters and export or add presets and export. That won't help you by much. Um, and also, don't be afraid to try out your phone's inbuilt editors. I think that's like one of the least utilized functions of cameras today on the smartphone. People ignore the inbuilt editors because they feel like, this is not built for professional use or to make things look clear. But please don't be afraid to try them. They have some amazing features that you will be blown away by. And my favorite part actually is that they have some stickers that I fail to find anywhere else that I add into my content from time to time, and I fail to find in Canva or Lightroom or InShot or all these other places. I will not find those stickers there because they are Samsung owned stickers. So if I want that particular sticker, I'll go into the inbuilt editor and use it. So explore that. And also, if you've not yet installed all these editing apps, before you even install them, try out your inbuilt editors because the difference is in the software, but the functionalities are really cross-cutting. They are the same. They serve the same purpose, and their results were pretty much the same. I think the difference is in the quality of exporting, what your files will look like at the point when you export. But don't be afraid to try out with your inbuilt editors to sort of give you some experience that you can then employ when you add these other editing apps. Again, if you need help with how to go around your editing apps, that's a conversation that we can have on the sideline, but that won't be free. um, so ultimately, all great content has to undergo post editing of some sort. It has to, at least to some degree. It is it's very lazy. It's very, I want to use, language that might not be like the best to use on a forum like this, but it's very, I think it's underutilizing your phone if you share things online just the way you took them. Yes, our cameras have been built to like create beautiful pictures and beautiful images on their own, but to give your images and footage that pop effect, to make them stand out from all the other things that you're seeing online, you need to do some minimal editing to them at least. You need to maybe adjust, again, what I'm calling the blacks. You need to adjust the blacks to, be darker. You need to adjust the whites to be brighter. You need to take out what we call shadows. These are all options that will be available to you in any editor that you use. And the beauty of editing is that you see the differences as and when you're making them. So you'll be able to access them, you'll be able to see them. Um, and you'll export at any point where you're happy with your result. And if you're not happy with your result, you can always go back and edit again. So yeah, these are basically the 8 steps that I put together for us to sort of work around creating better content with our smartphones for both photo and video. Um, you will let me know either here or privately whether you found any of these resourceful or helpful. If you'd like me to shed some light on, something that came out for you, or if you faced a personal challenge trying to explore some of these things in the past, please feel free to bring this up. Um, I think we're not so time bad. I'll probably provide like 10-15 minutes to address any questions or feedback that you might have, and then we shall call it a session. Thanks, everyone. So if there's any questions, you could feel free to like just unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if you'd like to raise your hand like a class, that's also fine. I'll be open to that.
Tebaleka otukoze otya?
Who was the latecomer? I couldn't see who was speaking. Sorry, I think because I was presenting, or maybe I'll just stop sharing so I can see who's. So who was yeah, the latecomer? Was that Bint? No, no worries.
Yes.
I'll avail this recording and the presentation as well. Sometime later during the day, I'll avail them to everyone that signed up for the session, and of course I'll also make them available on social media. So that should be helpful.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That will be helpful.
Hi, Tony.
Yes, Hassan. Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I want to thank you so much for this presentation. It was wonderful and helpful.
Yeah.
However, I feel like there is something that most people always ignore, but it should come out. Sometimes someone might do everything that you have talked of, and still it doesn't come out like of that good quality that they want.
Yeah.
So some people really need to put their work together and know that the individual brilliance also matters because they are shaking, and the creativity part of it, especially in post-production, it matters because you might have good content, you have good raw images, raw videos, they are brilliant, but in the time of execution, post-production, everything is like bad. So it makes you lose on good content. So people always also try to be serious in what they're doing. If they feel like they have shot the work and they are not comfortable editing it, it doesn't hurt just getting a small budget and you give it someone to do the post-production for you. Yeah, that's it I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hassan. You do post-production, eh?
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like this was Kalango.
No.
No. I meant that as a joke.
Yeah, even when it comes to videos, I always try to stay away from people's videos because they, especially those that they have shot themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think that also goes back to the point that I was saying about, when you go out to hang out with your friends, there are these people that you'll see that are basically taking the whole smartphone camera thing too seriously. Like you see them moving too seriously. And ultimately, the goal is for us to now become those people. Like just put yourself in every time you're going to shoot something, no matter how small, no matter how basic, just put yourself in a mindset where you understand that this is about to go out there. It's about your product, it's about your service, so it needs to come off as serious. So you have no room to play about with things. Yeah, thanks, Hassan. Any other questions? Any feedback?
Hey Tony.
Hello, Emma. Hi.
Hey, thanks so much. This was very, very helpful, especially on the part where some of us do like product photography.
Yeah.
But by doing is we are trying. We have not yet learned things yet very well. But when you keep doing things repeatedly, you keep getting questions. You're like, what did I do wrong? I edited something well last time, and then it's totally different the next time you're posting it. So some of these things have been like really, really helpful. I love this. One question I have though, is there a bare minimum to what kind of gadgets you can use? Especially now, like for the phones, like is there something that you're like, oh no, don't use this? Because I know there are some phones that are really shitty.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it.
So when you say bare minimum, are you asking like about brand or are you asking about the camera specifications?
Yeah, the specifications.
I thought this was where we start saying, stay
No,
away from
it's not
Infinix, don't
you
don't
said
look
it.
into
I didn't want to
techno and
mention
all
that.
those things. No. I'll be honest. Still on brand. I'll be honest with you. I think for a very long time, me, I was a techno person. I created a lot of content at the onstart with techno, and this was way before techno began all these flagship phones, like the very very first commons. But what used to work for me now, and also might benefit other people that are on the call, is that I did a lot of post production. Like I said, I knew that the picture that techno is going to give me is not as crisp as your iPhone or your Samsung or your other phones. So what I'll do is I'd play around with the sharpness. I'd play around with the sharpness. I'd play around with the light parts and the dark parts of my images, and my result would look just as good. I think there's somebody that I'd hoped to join the call. I'm not sure if they were able to. There's a young man I know in Gulu called Chris Okello. Chris Okello is a mobile content creator, and he uses technos. Like for him, he's married to techno. I feel like he has a wife in there or something. But like his output, his products really look good. They look Samsung grade or they look iPhone grade, and a lot of his magic is within how he does his post production. Like Hassan was saying, as you put time into it, as you put seriousness into it, your product can only get better. There's no way your practice is going to make your products worse, your final outputs worse. So just make it better. Just keep going on. Now, to address your question, Emma, around a bare minimum, I think in 2024, a bare minimum that I would work with is to have a video that can give me 4K. And this is something that now, phones of like 450,000 are also able to do. So I would work with a phone that can give me 4K. If you're planning to take content creation seriously, a phone that can give me 4K and at least 60 frames per second, because that will give you more frames within your videos. It will give you more resolution within your pictures as well. So that will help you to maintain like a bare minimum standard of the quality of your images and videos. But that's not something I'd really worry about these days, because like I said, it's literally what any phone that is coming out now at a bare minimum should be able to shoot 4K. It's just us, Abegui Sedalu, and we're going to our settings because 4K is consuming a lot of storage space, and we start shooting the 1080p's and those things, which is not criminal, but it's not something that you should be doing, I think, if you want to maintain a bare minimum standard of your content on your footage. Yeah. Thanks for that. I think it was a good question. Okay. It's 11:11. I'll leave like 3-4 more minutes for any further questions or feedback, and then I'll quickly move on to the chat. I think Evelyn managed a joke about the crouching tiger. You literally need to be a crouching tiger, because your your feet at that point when you're shooting footage need to be, like your movement needs to be as quiet as that of a tiger. I think the tiger's greatest quality is its stealthiness. For a thing as big as that, its stealthiness is like its greatest quality. So you need to literally move like a tiger. You're right about that. Rosie, I'm glad you found this insightful. Thank you. And thank you, Sanera. Thank you very much. I'm glad you loved the presentation, and I'll be sharing it with you. Okay, cool. I don't think there's any further questions or feedback. Habiba loved it. Thank you. I'm glad. I hope it, goes a bit of a long way to help you with how you create content for your business, which I'm very proud of, by the way. Very proud of you. Yeah. So thanks everyone. I think I'll call it a session at this point. I'll end it and then I'll share this with all of us for just future reference in case you might want to revisit it. 2 weeks from now, I'll have another session and we'll be discussing something very basic but very important. We'll basically be discussing how to overcome anxiety before the camera, because a lot of us invest a lot in buying high-end flagship phones, and we're going to use this thing to talk about our businesses. But every time we get in front of the camera, it's like a whole other story. I know, I think from from the few faces that I see on here, I think a lot of our content looks at the product, at the product, at the product. But it's a very key element of storytelling these days to have a face to attach to your product. So we need to start seeing you in front of the camera, speaking about your product, speaking about your services, and telling us basically why we should buy into them. Yeah. So yeah, 2 weeks from now, next on first should be what, 8th June, we'll have a session on what these people have done to come from a place where they were totally terrified of speaking in front of the camera, which I partially still am, by the way. So I'll be learning at that point as well, to a point where they confidently speak before the camera, and they'll be sharing with you how much that has boosted their engagement, their followers on their social media channels and all those things. Yeah. I see it's not basic. I hope it's this is Rebecca. I hope it's fine for us who would like to share it with our teams that run that. Yes, I definitely wouldn't mind that. I'll share with you the recording. It should be available like on YouTube or some space like that, so you'll be able to share it. And then and the presentation as well. I'll make the presentation accessible as well. That's why most of us have videos up in this session. Yeah, because you're all camera shy. That's what I was saying. I see a lot of these faces here and I recognize them to be shy. Yeah, Habiba, you need to start adding your sweet face to the sweet products that you're selling, the sweet juice. So yeah, we'll discuss all that in that session. We'll just go through, just key from personally, like just from their own experiences, what they have gone through to overcome camera anxiety. Cool. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you for making the time, an hour or so, literally, yes, an hour of your time this Saturday to join me. Cool. Thanks everyone. Cheers.